In this video, I will be showing you how I used Blender to make this stylized gun 3D model. I'll show my workflow for creating the low poly as well as the high poly in Blender, and then use Substance Painter to texture the model. At the end, I will bring it all together in Blender and assign the textures exported from Substance Painter to make a simple render within Blender. Alright, let's get to it. For this particular model, I decided to use concept art and follow it as close as I could. Blender makes it really easy to import reference images by going to Add Image, Reference Image. Once I had the reference image in Blender, I started the low poly model by using primitives, in this case mainly cylinders and later cubes as well. Since I had a reference, this made it really easy to trace by looking at the model from the side in orthographic view. I added edge loops where appropriate and used mainly the extrude tool to push geometry out when needed. I used the same modeling workflow to make all the pieces for this model. One thing I also did was to keep parts of the model as separate meshes. When separating things, this makes it a lot easier to control all the different parts and pieces of the model. How to separate the model into pieces depends on the concept art, but I usually like to keep things separate where it makes sense. Think about how things in real life are made. More often than not, things usually are made of pieces and assembled together. This is also a good way to approach making 3D models as well. One thing I usually do is create the main shapes first, and then do a second pass by adding more details to the model. When I'm working with concept art, I personally have no problem going straight to the second detail pass, even at the beginning. But it doesn't hurt to create the main shapes first, just to get an idea of how the model looks like as a whole. Once I was happy with the model, I duplicated the entire collection and renamed all the assets within it with the suffix _low for the low poly models, and the second collection to _high for the high poly models. For the high poly models, I added more bevels and overall smoothness to it. I also added a few more details here and there. I could have also taken it into sculpting mode and added some more sculpt details, but since this is a hard surface object, which I wanted to look fairly smooth, I did not proceed with any sculpting and instead used the higher poly versions as my high poly. After making the high poly, it was time to create the UVs for the low poly model. My preferred way to make UVs is to apply a projection from view to the entire model. This is to reset the UVs for the model. After that, I select the edges where appropriate, which is usually where there is a near 90-degree angle change in the geometry. Once I had the edges I wanted selected, I used the option Mark as Seam and also Mark as Sharp. I did this because I wanted the normals of the model to be hard edges where there is a UV cut, and everything else to be a soft normal. This is a standard way to set normals or smoothing groups when baking on a low poly model. After that, I simply just used the unwrapped option in Blender. One thing I also did for some of the UVs was to straighten them. This can be useful in cases where you want to add details when texturing, especially things like straight lines. After I had created the UVs for all the pieces, I packed everything into one UV set. Once I had the low poly and the high poly ready, I exported both as FBX files. In Substance Painter, I imported the low poly and also imported the high poly in the bake settings, and baked all the maps using the option as by mesh name. For the texture, I used my 3DX Stylized Smart Material 3.0, which comes with a few already pre-made stylized materials which you can use to quickly texture stylized models. If you're interested, there is a link to it in the video description. I applied different materials to different pieces and adjusted some of the settings as well. I was going for a fairly clean look, but not a totally flat look. One error I made, which I didn't notice until a bit later, was that my UVs were not uniformly scaled. meaning some parts of the model have more resolution than others. This is a simple fix though, that you can do in Blender before packing. The nice thing about Substance Painter is that you can always re-import your model and remake your maps. After I was happy with the texture, I exported them and imported them into Blender. Blender makes it really easy to auto-assign textures to a material by simply opening the material, clicking on it, and using Ctrl-Shift-D and picking your textures. I did a quick lighting setup and called this one done. If you liked the final result for this one, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this one. Also, if you would like to see the video uninterrupted, please see the links in the pinned comment, as you can access the full videos by signing up to my Patreon or going through my website. Check out the other links in the video description as well for more useful tutorials and tools as well. Thank you again, and I hope to see you in the next one.